My name's Mike Barnes, and I used to believe in one love for life. I met Laura back in 10th grade. Springtime. Warm air. The kind of day that makes the whole world feel wide open. She walked into class like she owned the place. Red hair, loud laugh, full of fire. Always had something to say, always pushed back. She argued with our biology teacher once over dissecting a frog. Said the frog looked at her funny. And then she turned and smiled at me. That was it. We started talking between classes, then walking home together. By the end of the school year, we were inseparable. Sat next to each other in every class senior year. Took our senior trip together. At prom, she wore this dark green dress that made her eyes glow. I remember thinking, this girl? She's it. I just knew. That summer, we both got jobs. I was pumping gas and changing oil at a local garage. She was working at the grocery store down the road. Every spare minute we had, we spent together. Watching movies on my parents' old couch. Eating pizza in her beat-up Honda. Driving out to the lake and talking about the future like we knew what the hell we were doing. By the time we were 20, we were married. Small ceremony, nothing fancy. Just a backyard barbecue and a bunch of folding chairs. She wore her mom's wedding dress, and I wore a suit that didn't fit quite right. But it felt perfect. We weren't rich. Far from it. But we were young, in love, and stupidly optimistic. I was working as a mechanic, turning wrenches and busting knuckles, and she eventually landed an office job after our first kid was born. We rented a small duplex, then saved enough to buy a house on the edge of town. It wasn't much, but it was ours. 2 kids came along, first a boy, then a girl. Late nights, early mornings, broken sleep, and a lot of, how the hell do we do this? Moments. But we figured it out. Together. That's the key word, together. We were a team. Laura was always the fire in the room. Strong-willed, sharp-tongued, and damn near impossible to argue with. But I loved that about her. She pushed me, kept me sharp. I knew how to navigate her moods, her stubborn streaks. After a while, it became our rhythm, her fire, my calm. It worked. At least, it used to. But something changed. I can't pinpoint exactly when. Maybe 2 years ago, maybe a bit more. She started to feel distant, colder, like she was somewhere else even when she was sitting right next to me. Conversations got shorter. Laughs got fewer. She'd snap over little things, then act like nothing happened. At first, I chalked it up to stress, work, kids, life. We'd been through rough patches before. I figured this was just another one. But then, I noticed how she looked at her phone. The way she'd lock it the second I walked by. The late nights at work. The sudden interest in going out alone. Just for some air. The hugs that felt stiff. The kisses that landed on autopilot. Still, I didn't want to believe it. This was Laura. My Laura. The girl who shared my fries and laughed at my stupid jokes. The woman who held my hand when our daughter broke her arm and cried with me when our son left for college. But she wasn't that woman anymore. And I didn't know why. I just knew I was starting to feel like a stranger in my own home. At first, it was just little things. Laura would get irritated over stuff she used to brush off. Dishes in the sink, shoes in the hallway, me asking if she wanted anything from the store. It wasn't the word she used, it was the edge in her voice. Sharp. Cold. Like I was the thing in her way. I tried to write it off. Maybe she was tired. Work had been stressful for her, I knew that. Maybe she was just burned out, like we all get sometimes. But then it got worse. She started pulling away. Less talking. Less touching. Less of everything. We'd eat dinner, and she'd stare at her phone more than her plate. I'd ask how her day went, and she'd give me one-word answers. Fine. Busy. Tired. That's it. No details. No warmth. I remember one night, I was folding laundry, of all things. She walked by, paused for a second, and said, "I like the way you do that." But the way she said it? It wasn't affectionate. It was weird. There was this pause, like she meant something else. The way she emphasized, "You?" like she was comparing me to someone. And the look in her eyes, distant, like her mind was somewhere else entirely. I just stood there, holding a towel, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut by a sentence. For some reason, that moment stuck with me. I couldn't shake it. And that's when the thought hit me, the one I didn't want to think. What if there's someone else? I mean, we'd been together forever. I'd never even considered it. Not seriously. Not Laura. Sure, she had a temper. Sure, she could be stubborn and hard to live with. But she was loyal. Or so I thought. Still, the signs were piling up, and suddenly, they didn't feel like coincidences. Something wasn't right. I just didn't know how wrong it was yet. Sometimes the truth doesn't slap you in the face. Sometimes it just whispers. It was a Saturday morning. I had gotten up early to grab a clean shirt from our bedroom closet. Laura was still in bed, scrolling through her phone. Nothing unusual. I walked past her to the dresser when I heard the little chime. One of those soft, harmless notification sounds. But something about the way she reacted, flipping the phone over fast, face down, caught my eye. She never used to hide anything from me. So when she got up to take a shower, I glanced at the screen. Just one glance. And that was enough. There it was, a message from someone named JR. Just 2 words. Did he do it? I felt a cold wave rush through me. My heart thudded like it knew something I hadn't been willing to admit. Did he do it? Did I do what? Was that a test? A game? A checkpoint in some twisted plan? I sat down on the edge of the bed, staring at that message like it might rearrange itself and make more sense. But it didn't. And deep down, I knew. It wasn't innocent. She had someone else. And they were talking about me. That weird comment she made the other night. "I like the way you do that," came rushing back. The emphasis on you? Like she was keeping score. Comparing. Suddenly, everything fell into place. Her mood swings, the distance, the secretive phone habits. All those moments I'd brushed off now screamed in unison. She was cheating. I just didn't know with who. Or for how long. And I needed to find out. But I couldn't confront her, not yet. I had no real proof. One message wasn't enough, and if I jumped too soon, she'd lock everything down. I needed to be smart. So I came up with a plan. I told her I wasn't feeling well. Said my stomach was off, probably something I ate. She offered to make soup, but I turned her down. Claimed I just needed rest. For the next few days, I pretended to be sick. Slept in the guest room. Kept quiet. Let her think I was too tired to notice anything. It gave me space to think and watch. I started paying attention. To her schedule. Her habits. What time she left for work. How late she came home. What excuses she used. And all the while, I played the role of the worn-out husband, polite, distant, half awake. She didn't suspect a thing. But I was wide awake. I even started driving around during my lunch break, circling near her office, trying to see if I could catch anything. I didn't have her passwords. We'd always respected each other's privacy, the kind of trust that now made me feel like an idiot. But I knew I couldn't live in this limbo forever. I needed answers. Real ones. So I waited, and watched, and prepared myself for what I already knew was coming. It's a strange thing. catching someone in a lie you were hoping wasn't true. The plan was simple. Painful, but simple. That Wednesday, I told my shop I needed the afternoon off. Didn't go into detail, just said I was still feeling rough. Nobody asked questions. I packed up around noon, got in my truck, and drove straight to Laura's office. I parked across the street, down just far enough not to be noticed. Rolled the seat back. Waited. It was a clear day. One of those spring afternoons that would have made a perfect date night years ago. But I wasn't there for romance. I was there for confirmation. Every minute felt like an hour. I started second-guessing myself. What if I'd misunderstood that text? What if JR wasn't what I thought? Maybe she really had been working late. Maybe I was about to blow up our marriage over nothing. Then at 2:45 p.m., I saw her. She walked out of the building, sunglasses on, hair done, wearing the red top she only pulled out when she wanted to feel confident. She wasn't carrying any work stuff. No purse. Just her phone in one hand and car keys in the other. She wasn't heading to a meeting. I started the engine and kept a good distance as she pulled out of the lot. My hands were sweating. I stayed 2 cars back, close enough to follow, far enough not to raise suspicion. We drove for about 15 minutes. Not toward home. Not toward anywhere she'd normally be in the middle of a Wednesday. Then she pulled into the parking lot of a roadside motel. You know the kind. 2 floors, doors facing the lot, weekly rates, faded sign that probably hadn't been lit since the Bush administration. I drove past and circled back, parking behind a dumpster across the street. And then, like a scene out of a bad soap opera, he showed up. Black sedan. Crisp white shirt. Sunglasses. Jake Robinson. Her boss. I watched him get out of the car and walk straight to her. He didn't knock. He didn't hesitate. She was already out of her car by then, walking to meet him like it was the most normal thing in the world. No guilt. No nerves. Just comfort. He opened the motel room door, and she stepped in first. He followed. The door closed. That was it. No more guessing. No more doubt. I took out my phone and snapped a photo. Nothing fancy. Just a time-stamped image of her car next to his, both parked in front of room 108. Proof. It was over. Not the marriage, not yet. But the illusion? That ended right there. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just sat there in my truck, staring at that door, feeling something cold settle in my chest. 20+ years together. 2 kids. A house. Holidays. Inside jokes. All of it, replaced with a motel room and a man who signs her paychecks. I thought I'd feel fury. But mostly, I just felt empty. I waited another 10 minutes, took a second photo for good measure, then drove home. No screaming. No confrontations. Just a silent ride back to a house that already didn't feel like mine anymore. After the motel, I shut down. Not outwardly. I didn't scream or throw things. Didn't tell her I knew. I just pulled away. I moved into the garage that night. Told her I needed space, that I wasn't sleeping well. She didn't argue. Maybe she figured the distance would blow over. But she had no idea I'd seen everything. She had no clue I knew about Jake, about the motel, about all the lies. I was done talking. The garage had always been my retreat, my little haven. I'd built it with my own hands, a 2-car setup with a loft up top. Had a bed, tools, old TV, a mini fridge. It was the place I went when I needed to clear my head, or when we had one of our epic fights, and I didn't want to sleep on the couch. Now it became my full-time bedroom. Laura didn't like that. She started picking fights, asking me what my problem was, why I was acting distant, why I wouldn't engage like an adult. I gave her nothing. Just shrugs and short replies. It drove her crazy. And then, one night, she snapped. I was in the loft of the garage, lying on the bed watching some rerun, when I smelled something strange. Burning. At first, I thought it was electrical, maybe a short. I jumped up and looked down the stairs. Fire. My workbench was in flames. Smoke was already rising toward the ceiling. I froze for half a second, then bolted. The stairs were blocked, so I climbed out the side window and dropped hard onto the grass below. Twisted my ankle on the landing, felt it crack. But I was alive. I limped toward the driveway, coughing, trying to process what had just happened. And then I saw her. Laura. Standing there. Watching. Smiling. She didn't say a word at first. Just crossed her arms and stared at the flames like she was proud of herself. "You tried to burn me alive," I said, my voice hoarse. She shrugged. "I was just burning some of your garbage. Didn't think you'd be dumb enough to sleep in there." I called the cops. Told them everything. Not the affair part, just the fire, the danger, the fact that she was outside watching while I was inside choking on smoke. When the police arrived, she tried to play it off. Said it was an accident. That she was burning old papers. One officer took my statement while the other cuffed her and put her in the back of the patrol car. I stood there on the lawn, ankle swelling, clothes reeking of smoke, and watched my entire workspace, my sanctuary, go up in flames. I had built that garage from scratch. Every tool, every cabinet, every little system I'd organized over the years, gone. The next morning, I called a lawyer. I didn't care what it cost. I didn't care how long it would take. I was done. She crossed a line you don't come back from. The day after the fire, I limped into the county clerk's office and filed for a restraining order. I didn't want a confrontation. I didn't want apologies or explanations. I just wanted distance, legally enforced distance. She was still in jail, at least until the arraignment. And I needed every hour of that breathing room. By the end of the week, the order was signed. She couldn't come within 500 feet of me, the house, or the shop. Then I filed for divorce. I wish I could say it felt empowering, like a clean break, a bold new chapter. But honestly, it just felt hollow. Like taking a wrecking ball to the only home you ever knew. But I wasn't done. Jake Robinson, Mr. Motel Room 108, still had a cushy job as Laura's supervisor. And I couldn't live with that. So I made a few calls. See, running 4 auto shops in a small town gives you connections. And Jake? He wasn't exactly discreet. I found out from one of his ex-colleagues that this wasn't his first minty romance. I called Laura's company CEO. We'd met before. He'd brought his car into my shop once, years ago. I was calm, polite, professional. Told him I was divorcing my wife because she'd been having an affair with one of his managers. Named names. Supplied proof. Didn't yell, didn't threaten, just laid it all out. He said, "I had a bad feeling about that guy." By Friday, Jake was unemployed. One down. That weekend, I sat my kids down. Kevin was 19, just getting started in the trades. Madison was 17, senior year of high school. They both knew something was wrong. The air in the house had been thick for weeks. But this was different. I told them everything. Not in detail. Not with blame. Just the truth. Their mom cheated. She tried to set fire to the garage while I was inside. She was in legal trouble, and we were getting divorced. Madison went quiet. Kevin didn't. He stood up and stormed out. Came back an hour later, red-eyed and trembling. Said, "If she tries to come back here, I swear." I stopped him. Told him we weren't going to let this tear us apart. That anger made sense, but it had to be handled right. That night, I went back to sleeping in the garage, what was left of it. Just a cot and some blankets under a tarp. But it felt safer than inside that house. Safer than lying next to someone who smiled while the walls were burning. I'd won a few small battles. She was out. He was fired. My kids knew the truth. But it didn't feel like a win. Inside, I was still burning. Funny thing about truth, once it's out, it spreads. It started with a message from a woman named Jennifer Robinson, Jake's ex-wife. She'd heard about the divorce, about the fire, about everything. "I think we should talk," her message said. "I know more than you think." We met for coffee. She was sharp, calm. You could tell she'd been through the ringer, and wasn't the type to play victim. Over 2 lattes and an oatmeal cookie we shared like awkward teenagers, she walked me through her side of the Jake story. The flirting, the secrecy, the late hours, the mentorship, and finally, the affair that blew up her marriage. Different woman, same man, same damn pattern. I felt understood. Finally, Jennifer didn't look at me like some broken husband or small-town gossip magnet. She listened. She nodded. She laughed in the right places. She even swore at Jake more creatively than I ever could. That first coffee turned into dinner. Dinner into weekends. And before I knew it, I was feeling things I hadn't felt in years. Not just attraction. Not lust. Value. I felt valued. Like someone wanted me around. Not for what I could fix or pay for, but for who I was. And then came the second surprise. Apparently, word had gotten around about Laura. Especially at her office. Turns out, her colleagues weren't exactly loyal friends. A couple of them reached out. "Just to check on me." One even said, "We always thought she was way too hard on you." And just like that, I was getting invited to lunches, happy hours, little events here and there. At first, I thought it was pity. That people just felt sorry for the guy who got burned, literally and figuratively. But it wasn't pity. It was curiosity, interest, and maybe, just maybe, a little admiration. I'd gone from the quiet, dutiful husband in the background to the man who stood his ground, fought back, and kept moving. Women, smart, accomplished, confident women, started talking to me, flirting, asking questions. And for the first time in years, I realized I wasn't invisible. I was a man again. Not the shell Laura had chipped away at. Jennifer and I didn't become serious. We both had too much baggage. But she gave me a gift I didn't know I needed. She reminded me I was still worth something. And that opened the door. Because life wasn't just rebuilding now, it was changing. And I was ready for it. The first time Laura called me after the arrest, she was oddly calm. Second time, not so much. "You think you're some kind of stud now?" she snapped. "Excuse me?" I said, half laughing, half dreading where this was going. "I hear things, Mike," she hissed. "Shannon from HR? Really? And Jennifer? Of all people?" I sat back, let the silence stretch. She hated that. Always did. "You cheated on me," I finally said. "You set fire to my garage. And now you're mad because someone actually wants to have lunch with me. You're dating coworkers from my office. And you were sleeping with your boss in a motel. Do you hear yourself?" She hung up. That became a pattern: sporadic calls, passive-aggressive texts, sudden outbursts. She'd say she missed me, then accuse me of being a player. She'd ask how the kids were doing, then throw in some insult about me, replacing her. One day she texted, "Do you even remember what we had?" I stared at the screen for a long time. "Yeah, Laura. I remember." I remember your laugh when we watched stupid comedies on Friday nights. I remember how you used to doodle little hearts in the margins of our grocery lists. I remember the way your face lit up when the kids were born. But I also remember the yelling, the silence, the way your eyes rolled every time I talked about work or dreams. I remember being ignored, belittled, treated like some background character in your life. So yeah, I remember. And I'm not going back there. Laura wasn't calling because she loved me. She was calling because she couldn't stand the idea that someone else might. She hated that I wasn't just surviving, I was living. That I laughed again. That I smiled when I walked into a room. That I wasn't hunched over, waiting for her next cold shoulder or sarcastic jab. For years, she had the final word in every argument. Now, I didn't even care to argue. I was done being the man who begged for warmth. Now I was the man who chose peace. And every time I looked in the mirror, I didn't see a victim anymore. I saw a man who walked through fire, literally, and came out cleaner on the other side. Kevin's engagement party was meant to be a celebration. Subs, soda, family, laughter. And for once, it actually felt like one. No drama. No cold shoulders. Just joy. Then I saw her. She walked in with grace, posture straight, dress modest but elegant. Blonde hair pulled back, calm eyes that scanned the room with quiet confidence. A woman who didn't need to raise her voice to command respect. That was Sarah, the mother of Amber, my son's fiancée. And she was something else. We exchanged polite smiles at first. Nothing more. I figured she'd heard the stories. Probably figured I was just another middle-aged mess clinging to whatever youth I had left. And honestly, who could blame her? Later that night, Kevin pulled me aside. "Dad," he said, "you should talk to her." "To who?" "Amber's mom. She's tough, but she's fair. I think you two might get along. Or she'll throw her wine in my face," I muttered. He laughed. "She doesn't drink." Even better. We finally spoke near the buffet table, awkwardly reaching for the same tray of mini quiches. "You must be Mike," she said. "You must be Sarah. You're Kevin's dad. You're Amber's mom." And we just stood there for a second, staring at each other like two poker players holding a pair of aces. She was direct, honest. Didn't mince words. "I've heard things about you," she said, looking me in the eye. "I'm sure you have. Some say you're popular with the ladies." I smiled. "Some say that. Others say I'm just healing in reverse." That made her chuckle. First smile I got out of her. We talked for a while. Nothing deep, just safe topics. Work, kids, barbecue recipes. But even in that, there was something different. She didn't look through me like I was a ghost from someone's cautionary tale. She listened. She challenged. And when I teased her, lightly, carefully, she teased right back. I liked her instantly. But I knew better than to rush. This woman wasn't a fling. She wasn't a rebound. And she sure as hell wasn't going to fall for charm alone. I had to earn her trust. Over the next few weeks, I did exactly that. I showed up. I followed through. I met her for coffee, brought flowers, asked questions, remembered the answers. I told her the truth about Laura, about the garage, about the mess I'd been, and the man I was trying to become. And one evening, sitting on her front porch with lemonade and the sound of crickets all around us, she reached over and touched my hand. "You know," she said, "you're not who I expected. Better or worse?" She smiled softly. "Better." It had been years since anyone had said that to me. Not, "You're okay now." Not, "You're surviving." Better. With Sarah, I didn't feel like I was proving anything anymore. I just was. And for the first time since my life went up in flames, I believed it might be possible to love again, not out of revenge or loneliness, but out of hope. Real hope. Laura called me the week before the wedding. She sounded tired. Not angry. Not sarcastic. Just tired. "Mike," she said, "I heard about Sarah." "Yeah. You really love her?" "I do." There was a long pause. I could hear her breathing through the line. "I messed everything up, didn't I?" "I think we both did," I said. "But yeah, you lit the match." She laughed. Not a happy laugh. One of those soft, sad ones. "I'm sorry." "I know. I wish things were different." "So do I." We didn't say much after that. Just sat in the silence of two people who used to share everything and now had nothing left to say. But before we hung up, I told her one last thing. "I forgive you, Laura." Her voice cracked. "You do?" "I do. But that doesn't mean I'm coming back. We're not those people anymore." She whispered thank you and ended the call. And with that, it was over. For real this time. No more what-ifs. No more reliving old arguments in my head. Just peace. The wedding was small, close friends, family, and a preacher with a warm smile who didn't need a microphone to make his point. Sarah wore a light blue dress. No veil. No glitter. Just her and that calm confidence I'd come to admire. I stood there in a gray suit, heart pounding like I was 20 again. When she said, "I do," I felt it down to my bones. And when I said it back, I meant every word. We weren't starting from scratch. We were starting from experience. From scars and survival. From knowing exactly what it takes to make love last, and what can destroy it. There was no band, no crowd, no over-the-top cake. Just us. Just right. Later that night, as we sat on the back porch watching the sky turn pink, Sarah leaned into me and said, "Are you happy?" I looked at her, at the life we were building, at the peace I never thought I'd have again. "I am," I said. "More than I thought possible." Because I wasn't just starting a new chapter. I was finally closing the old one. Not with bitterness. Not with revenge. But with forgiveness, for her, for myself, and for the years I'd spent in the wreckage. I believed in love again. Not because of the past, but in spite of it.